Good morning and welcome to Around the Globe on Aneke TV. First, the headlines. Tens of thousands of protesters gather in Tel Aviv to demand end to Gaza war. U.S. suspends visitor visas for people from Gaza. Customs intercepts expired drugs worth 130 million naira in Lagos. Police inspector arrested for robbery in Edo. UNESCO recognizes Shango Festival as World Heritage. Atletico suffers shock defeat to Espanyol in season opener. I am Aneke. Now the news in details. Tens of thousands of demonstrators have gathered in Tel Aviv to call for an end to the war in Gaza and the release of hostages. In one of the largest coordinated demonstrations since the beginning of the Gaza war nearly 2 years ago, protesters blocked major roads, closed private businesses and staged rallies in big cities across Israel. The nationwide grassroots strike and widespread protests grew over the course as protesters demand the government secure the release of 50 hostages still in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized the protests, saying they would harden Hamas's stance and would only slow down the release of the hostages. Now we move to the U.S. The United States government says it is suspending visitor visas for Gazans after a far-right influencer with the ear of President Donald Trump complained that wounded Palestinians had been allowed to seek medical treatment in the United States. The announcement came one day after a series of furious social media posts by Laura Loomer, who is known for promoting racist conspiracy theories and claiming that the 9/11 terrorist attacks were an inside job. In a series of posts on X, Loomer called on the State Department to stop giving visas to Palestinians from Gaza. In Asia, reports say Bolivia is set to elect a non-left-wing president after nearly 2 decades of near-continuous rule by the incumbent Socialist Party. Senator Rodrigo Paz Pereira and the former President Joy Quiroga came in first and second place respectively in yesterday's presidential elections. Neither received a high enough share of the vote to secure an outright win, so the vote will go to a runoff between these two candidates due in September. Paz Pereira of the Christian Democratic Party was a surprise vote leader after opinion polls had suggested Samuel Doria Medina, a businessman who was the front runner. Now we move to Africa. A prominent Sudanese human rights group, the Emergency Lawyers Group, has accused the country's army and security forces of torturing people to death and operating execution chambers. The group said it had documented hundreds of arrests in the capital, Khartoum, adding that in worst cases, some captives had earlier been found dead with evidence of torture. The Sudanese army did not respond to the BBC's request for comment. Throughout the war, the Emergency Lawyers Group has documented atrocities by both the Army and the Rapid Support Forces (RSF). Now back home in Nigeria, the Minister of State for Housing and Urban Development, Mr. Yusuf Abdullahi Atta, has called on the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to cancel the Bagwai-Shanono State Assembly by-election, alleging widespread violence and electoral malpractice. Mr. Abdullahi Atta made the call in Kano while briefing newsmen on the outcome of the exercise held over the weekend. He alleged that armed thugs were mobilized from within and outside Kano to disrupt the process, thereby disenfranchising voters. According to him, the thugs invaded the two local government areas of Bagwai and Shanono as early as 5 a.m. on election day, wielding dangerous weapons and chasing away residents from their homes and polling units. In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) says it will commence the 2025 nationwide continuous voter registration (CVR) exercise today. The Commission, in a statement via its X handle, said the online pre-registration will open today through its official portal cvr.inecnigeria.org, while the in-person registration will commence on the 25th of this month at all INEC local government area offices and designated registration centers nationwide. Aneke TV correspondent Chidema Ikemede takes a look at the preparedness of Enugu residents as the exercise commences.
It was Joseph Schumpeter who posited that democracy is an indispensable mechanism for selecting leaders through elections to the actual process of choosing rulers, and franchise is a pivotal process in the electoral process. In that same vein, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has emphasized the need for popular participation in the registration of their voters' card for the 2027 general elections. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), saddled with the responsibility to organize, conduct, and supervise elections at all levels in Nigeria, including presidential, gubernatorial, and legislative elections at the federal and state levels, that also have the responsibility to register eligible voters and maintain an accurate voter register, recently announced its plans to commence the continuous voter registration (CVR) from August 18, 2025. The Commission also proposed to include inmates in the forthcoming 2027 general election, emphasizing on inmates' voting rights. This is as the electoral empire has re-echoed the need to seek the intervention of the National Assembly on the matter. When this happens, it will be the first in the history of Nigeria. These singular acts have, however, drawn different opinions from the public.
In Iboze South local government area, what we will do and have begun doing is sensitization. Sensitizing not just the youths of Iboze South about the registration, but also sensitizing the women of Iboze South. Don't forget, some were not around during the last round of registration. They were probably outside the local government, residing somewhere else, so they are now back home. Or conscientize them. Like you rightly said, the youths, constitute the substantial number and majority of the populace. Some of them in the last exercise were not up to age enough so as to participate in exercising their franchise. This time around, they have now grown and they can exercise that right of participation, in voting. So we conscientize them in secondary schools, in churches, in villages, during cultural festivals. These are the sensitizations we have championed, we have brought up, making it for them to know that it is as good as it is religious, that they enroll themselves in that platform where they can choose leaders and leadership of their choice in the next turn of general election in the country.
My name is Obu Obina Samson. I'm a youth administrator, and also as well I work with Aneke Pastor, Aneke Care Foundation. This, concerning the continuous voters registration, I think it's very, very important, because by law, once a youth is up to age of 18, he or she has the right to vote and be voted for. And failure to go for the registration will eventually means that youth will be denied of his or her fundamental human rights of voting or voting or to be voted for. So what it means is that every youth that would want to exercise their franchise come 2027 should try as much as he or she could to go for the registration and participate in the voting. Very, very important. Without the registration, there's no way you participate. Because I know some will be clamoring for retention or change of government. But there's no way you can effectively carry out your plan without going for your registration. So it's a clarion call for every youth there. If you know that you are up to the age of 18 years, go and do your registration so that you'll be eligible enough to participate in the forthcoming election. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Abastik, a medical practitioner and Secretary Guild of Public Affairs Analysts of Nigeria, a developmental analyst. For some of us who have gotten their voters card, I say kudos. It's a civic responsibility. You can't sit on the fence and be shouting. You must actually have your voters card to say this is whom you are going to allow to be elected. The last election we saw a lot of young Nigerians who were shouting a particular candidate on the street, but turned out that they didn't have a voters card. The election day, they only work from afar, work from afar to, to those casting their ballots. Now, Aneke has given us the privilege again in the name of continuous voters register. Ideally, that registration should be a continuous process because people turn to 18, every day, every minute, every second. So I think what I would say, those that have not gotten their cards, those that have not gotten the card for the first time, those that have lost their cards, those that actually want to change, those who have just attended 18, our university students, they should avail themselves the opportunity of becoming a full-fledged citizen by having their voters card to enable them perform their civic responsibility.
And they should decentralize the registration process. What I mean by decentralization is try to engage, if it is possible, private sector partnership. Use agencies like MTN, Glo, as a means of hastening this registration. If possible, they should decentralize it even to the local government area, even world level. To be better off, to make it more easier. Instead of clustering to a place for registration, you can go to your various ward and then carry out this registration effectively without any stress.
All eyes are on Aneke to unfold its plans to the general public to ensure a free, fair and credible election come 2027. However, this is a clarion call to the good people of Nigeria, a call to rise and choose your leaders, a call to come out in mass to register, get your PVC and vote. It is time to take hold of our country, Nigeria, to be patriotic because Nigeria is ours. Therefore, get your PVC. Chidimmi Kemede, Aneke TV.
Thank you, Chidimma Kemede, for that wonderful report. Please, if you have not acquired your PVC and you're up to 18, please use this window provided by Aneke to get your card. We continue with the rest of the news. The Nigerian Immigration Service has begun the deportation of 42 out of the 192 Chinese and Philippine nationals convicted of cyber terrorism and Ponzi scheme offenses. The first batch of 42 deportees, who were among the 759 persons arrested during a major raid on December 10, 2024 at Oyi, Jolayemi Street, Victoria Island, Lagos, was scheduled to leave Nigeria at 2 p.m. local time. It was gathered that all the convicted foreigners were transferred to the Nigerian Immigration Service. The deportation process is proceeding in phases. Others will be repatriated on Monday and Tuesday until all are returned to their home countries. In the meantime, the Nigeria Customs Command has announced the interception of two 40-foot containers, products valued at 130 million naira in duty-paid value DPV. The Customs Area Controller KLT Command, Mr. Egosa Edodok, announced this during us over the weekend. She said the containers marked HLBU 1067338 and HLBU 2239792 were seized by the command and other relevant import laws. Also, the Edo State Police Command says a 7 inspector and 3 civilians, Ojo Olorun Toby, was arrested alongside 3 civilian accomplices, namely Charles Ona, Joseph Ohiz, and Enoma Ago, who had been collaborating with him to terrorize residents of the city. We move to its spokesperson, Mr. Rahim Dadeyan, stated that the operation led by its chairman, Mr. Ade Tayo Akerele, targeted out Iyana Iba, Iyana Ishashi, Igbo Elerin, and Iyana School. Espanyol staged a late comeback to grab a shock 2-1 win over Atletico Madrid on Sunday, as Diego Simeone's men made a disappointing start to their La Liga campaign, leading through Julian Alvarez's brilliant goal at market, with notable arrivals including Alex Baena, David Hanko, Johnny Cardoso, and Giacomo Raspadori, in a bid to challenge Barcelona and Real Madrid for the title. Also in sport rivalry, edging his continental Malmo Arena. The contest, which has become one of the most anticipated fixtures in Africa, the Egyptian regained control in the third, overwhelming Aruna 11-3, and held his serve in a tight fourth game, closing out the victory 11-9 to seal progression. In tourism, the United Minister of Art, Culture, Tourism and the Creative Economy, Hannatu Musawa, presented UNESCO certificate